Good morning, class. Yeah, we will now continue with our lesson. So today we will be discussing in detail about the substitute goods. Okay, price of other goods. That is, other goods here refers to the substitute and complementary good. So पहिला हामी substitute को बारेमा पढौँ. Okay, so what are substitute goods? So substitute means we can use one good in place of another. We can use tea in place of coffee or coffee in place of tea. Even if we do not get one particular commodity, we can always go for the another commodity, giving us similar kind of a satisfaction if not the same. Okay, एउटै खालको satisfaction दिन्छ दुईटै कमोडिटीले. सो एउटा पाएन भने पनि अर्कोले काम चलिहाल्छ. सो द्याट इज वाट इज सब्स्टिट्युट गुड्स. सो अनदर एक्जाम्पल आई क्यान गिभ यु अबाउट सब्स्टिट्युट गुड्स are like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. If you have the habit of drinking Coca-Cola and supposing you do not get Coke, right, in a particular restaurant or in a particular shop, then you definitely can use Pepsi in place of Coca-Cola. So that is what is a substitute goods. Okay, now I'll explain it to you through the diagram, and it is a very important concept. What you need to remember here is, so if you see the diagram, the basic thing that you should understand here is there are two lines, okay, here in the diagram. The first one is the vertical and then another one is the horizontal line. So these two lines are very important in economics. So the horizontal line is known as x-axis. Okay, so you though it is not given here in this slide, I want you to write it down. When you make the diagram, on the horizontal axis you write down x-axis, and the vertical line you write on the top, at the top you write y-axis. Okay, so this is x-axis and y-axis. So this is an important concept in economics. It is an ABCD of economics. This is something which you need to remember for a very long time. Okay, as long as you are into economics, you should remember this x and y-axis, and this is known as origin or O, point of origin, or you can also call it zero. Okay, so if you go towards your right on the horizontal axis, that is on the x-axis, if you go towards your right, if you move towards your right, 0 देखि उता right मा गयो भने 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 like this, यो 0 देखि जति पनि राइटवर्ड मुभमेन्टहरु छ बढेको सबै त्यो इट इज इन्क्रिजिङ. ओके, 0 देखि उता गएको डल्लै बढेको. सिमिलरली 0 देखि माथि गएको डल्लै फेरि यता बढेको. So now let us try to understand what this diagram has to convey us. So here in this diagram, if you see, in x-axis or on the x-axis we measure the quantity of coffee. Okay, now we are discussing about the substitute goods. So always please focus on this substitute goods. Do not get mixed up with the complementary goods. So we are, since I have clearly told you, we are discussing about the substitute goods. Always remember there are two goods which can be used in place of one another. Okay, either you can use coffee or tea. So substitute गर्दैछ हामी. So don't get confused with complementary or some other goods. Okay, so x-axis ma, if you see on this horizontal line, on this x-axis we are measuring quantity of coffee. That means the amount of coffee we are actually demanding in the market. Okay, so कति खाँदैछ हामी कफी, त्यो चाहिँ कुन चाहिँ एक्सिसले देखाउँछ, x axis ले देखाउँछ. Similarly on the y axis, if you see, we measure the price of coffee. Okay, so यो diagram मा हामीले के हेर्दैछ, coffee को this diagram is giving us the representation of the amount of coffee we are demanding in the market and the price of the coffee that is there in the market. Okay, at particular price we demand how much of coffee and how much of what is the price of a coffee. Okay, y axis ma we are measuring the price of the coffee, and on the x axis we are measuring the quantity amount or the quantity demanded of a coffee. Now another important commodity that comes into the picture here is tea. Okay, so another important example that we have here is about another important commodity here is tea. So we have tea and coffee. Okay, now simply if you want to understand, if the price of tea goes up, then the demand for coffee goes up. Okay, so you forget about this line, first को line छ जुन चाहिँ line छ यो यता this the second line or the second point here at C2, you forget about C2 at the moment, just worry about C1. Okay, first we'll just concentrate on the first line. First को यो जुन चाहिँ line छ नि यसमा खाली हामी पहिला concentrate गरौँ. So at OP1 OP1 means the price of coffee. So at OP1, if you see, the amount of coffee that we demand is OC1. Okay. ठिक छ हैन. At OP1, OP1 चाहिँ के हो? Price of coffee. So what is the price of coffee? The price of coffee is P1 भनेर कहिले पनि भन्दैन. Okay. You need to give the magnitude. What is the price, actual price in the diagram? So the price is OP1 भन्नुपर्छ. Okay. OP1 gives us the magnitude, the amount. कति चाहिँ छ price. Similarly at OP1 हामीले कति खाँदैछ coffee? We are having OC1. Initial amount of coffee that we are demanding at OP1 is OC1. Okay, when the price of a tea is 200. Okay, so price of a tea जब 200 हुन्छ त्यति बेला हामीले coffee OC1 खान्छ. Okay. Now the price of tea increases. Okay, अब price of tea बढे 200 देखि 250 भयो. अब चियाको दाम बढ्यो भने हामीले के खान्छ? कफी खान्छ कि चिया खान्छ? कुन चाहिँ डिमान्ड गर्छ? You think for yourself for a moment. If the price of a tea goes up, then demand for coffee or demand for tea, which will go up? If the price of tea goes up, दाम बढ्यो अरे चियाको. So कुन चाहिँको डिमान्ड चाहिँ बढ्छ? कफी कि चियाको डिमान्ड बढ्छ? So if the price of tea goes up, then obviously we will demand more of coffee, because now the tea is becoming costly for us. Now we no longer demand tea. Okay, so we switch over to coffee. So त्यसो गर्दाखेरि we demand now more of coffee. So when the price of tea increases from 200 to 250, now you see here our demand, now since the price of tea has gone up but the price of coffee remains the same. Okay, the price of coffee is at OP1. Now what we see here is the demand for coffee will now increase, because it is becoming costly for us to go and have tea, right? Go and get tea. So if you want to buy the tea, it is now at a higher price. So definitely we do not want to get tea. Instead of that, we switch over to coffee. So we move on to coffee. We demand more of coffee. We increase the amount of quantity of coffee that we take or consume. So the coffee will increase from OC1 to OC2. यो बढेको बढेन. OC1 देखि OC2 सम्म कफी बढ्यो. At the same price of coffee को price same छ, OP1 नै छ, right? So there is a shift in the demand curve. यसलाई चाहिँ demand curve भन्छ. Okay. So demand curve is shifting from D to D1. First demand curve के छ? D छ. Now the demand curve is shifting. It is also known as a rightward shift. Rightward भन्ने बित्तिकै बढ्यो, या outward shift, या forward shift पनि भन्छ. Okay, so the demand curve or demand line both means the same. So basically most of the time in economics we use demand curve. Okay, it can be a line or a curve. यस्तो curve पनि हुन सक्छ, यता line पनि हुन सक्छ. So it's one at the same. So now the demand curve will move from D to D1. Understood? So किन भन्दाखेरि कफीको दाम त बढेको छ नि, त्यति नै छ मार्केटमा, राइट? तर कफीको क्वान्टिटी चाहिँ बढ्यो, डिमान्ड बढ्यो. किन भन्दाखेरि अब चियाको दाम बढ्यो नि त, यतापट्टि चियाको दाम बेसी भयो. ओके, सो हियर what I want you to do is write down this explanation of this diagram. Okay, it is given here on the left, and you will understand since it will bring more clarity to this particular explanation. Okay, since I have already explained about this diagram, similar thing they have just explained it here. I want you to write it down in your notebook. Okay, and once the school reopens, I'll check your entire notebook. I want all your copies to be complete, and also make sure that you make your copy very tidy. Okay, it should be clean, crisp and clear, your copies. And now we move on to the complementary goods. Okay, complementary means we need to use both the goods simultaneously. एकैचोटि चलाउनु पर्छ, दुईटै गुड्स हैन भने चल्दैन. So similar simple example yesterday I had given you was about the car and petrol, right? Now another example could be tea and sugar. We need both the commodities, right? Car and petrol. Petrol बिना कार हुँदै हुँदैन. So यदि यसमा चाहिँ कस्तो छ सिचुएसन भन्दाखेरि, यदि पेट्रोलको दाम बढ्यो भने कारको डिमान्ड के हुन्छ? घट्छ. पेट्रोलको दाम घट्यो भने कारको डिमान्ड बढ्छ. एज सिम्पल एज द्याट. ओके, यसमा चाहिँ ठिकै अपोजिट हुन्छ. सब्स्टिट्युटमा के भयो? एउटा गुडको दाम बढ्यो भने अर्को गुडको डिमान्ड बढ्छ. ओके, टीको दाम बढ्यो भने कफीको डिमान्ड बढ्छ. तर यहाँ कम्प्लिमेन्ट्रीमा चाहिँ, इन कम्प्लिमेन्ट्री यु सी इट इज क्वाइट द अपोजिट. इफ द प्राइस अफ अ पेट्रोल इज इन्क्रिजिङ, देन द डिमान्ड फर कार इज डिक्रिजिङ. Okay, now to own a car it becomes very costly, right? You need to manage your car, you need to uh, feed your car with a lot of petrol. Now the price of petrol has gone up, definitely means you can no longer own a car. It becomes very costly for you, so you don't want to own a car. Basically now the demand for car goes down. So त्यसरी नै टी एन्ड सुगर, यदि सुगरको दाम पुरा भयो अरे हामीले चिया एकदमै कम्ती खान चाल्छ, राइट? द डिमान्ड फर टी गोज डाउन इफ द प्राइस अफ द sugar goes up. Similarly, here in this diagram, if you see, on x-axis we are measuring the quantity of car that we are demanding, or the nation is demanding, or or a group of people they are demanding. Okay, it can be a group of people, or an economy, or a particular individual. So let us take one individual demanding a quantity or the amount of car in the market on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we see the price of car. So the price of car is OP1 and the quantity demanded of car is at the first or the initial point or the initial demand of the car in an economy or in a country is OC2. At OP1, if you see here, the demand, the demand for car is OC1. Okay, OC1. The C2 is the second figure. So forget about this line. First we'll just concentrate on the first line, that is D, on the first demand curve, that is D. Okay, so first प्राइस OP1 हुँदाखेरि गाडीको दाम OP1 हुँदाखेरि कतिवटा छ गाडीको डिमान्ड OC1 छ. ओके, सो द क्वान्टिटी अफ कार द्याट वी आर डिमान्डिङ इन द मार्केट when the price of the car is OP1, or quantity demanded is OC1. Okay, now the price of petrol increases, okay, from 35 to 40. अब दाम बढे, पेट्रोलको दाम बढ्यो भने के हुन्छ, हाम्रो डिमान्ड कर्भ इट विल शिफ्ट ब्याकवर्ड, और देयर विल बी एन लेफ्टवर्ड, और सिम्पली इनवर्ड शिफ्ट पनि भन्छ यसलाई, या ब्याकवर्ड शिफ्ट. ओके, सो यु क्यान राइट फरवर्ड एन्ड ब्याकवर्ड शिफ्ट. सो फरवर्ड शिफ्ट हामीले माथि हेरिहाल्यो, यो ब्याकवर्ड शिफ्ट भयो. अब प्राइस बढ्यो नि त पेट्रोलको दाम बढ्यो भने देयर विल बी अ backward shift. Similarly, on the contrary, if you see, if the price of petrol goes down, यदि price of petrol घट्यो भने चाहिँ के हुन्छ, C1 देखि अझै उता बढ्छ. Okay, there will be an outward shift, there will be a forward shift if the price of petrol decreases. If the price of petrol has increased, then again there will be a backward shift, because गाडी किन्न हामीलाई महँगो पर्यो, किनभने पेट्रोलको दाम बढ्यो, सो हामी गाडी किन्दैन, सो डिमान्ड घट्यो फ्रम OC1 to OC2. Okay, so this is about the complementary goods. Similar, so this is just an example of the backward shift. I want you to make both the forward and the forward and the backward shift. Even for the substitutes we have just done, we have just looked at the forward shift. I want you to make the backward shift as well. Okay, backward shift could be if the price of tea falls, then obviously we will demand less of coffee, we will switch over to tea. So there will be a backward shift in the coffee if the price of tea falls down. So here, if the price of petrol falls down, then there will be an outward shift, right? We'll demand more of car, because now it becomes cheaper to own a car because the price of petrol has fallen down. So that is about the forward shift. So I want you to make both the forward and backward shift for both substitute and complementary goods. Now, so this is about the demand is the function of price and price of related commodities, or price of related goods. Okay, so PZ, or यसलाई PR पनि भन्छ, price of related goods. So price of related goods मा के आउँछ, substitute र complementary, and both we have completed in this particular lesson. Now I'll see you or meet you in the next lesson. Now next lesson we'll talk about the income of a consumer. So please complete your notes, and as I've told you, forward and backward shift for both complementary and substitute goods you need to make in your copy. Okay, so yeah.